We're going to look at how to clear fractions from an equation. So clearing fractions is one of those magic tricks that'll make your life a lot easier when you're solving equations. It's a trick we have of getting rid of the fractions so that you are more easily able to solve the equation that you've got. So step number one is you look for the common denominator of all the fractions that are in your equation. So finding the lowest common denominator would be great because then you can keep your numbers smaller, but finding any common denominator will work. So if we look at our example, we look across the whole equations, both sides, we see that we've got two fractions there. We've got a 2/3 and a 5/6. So we want to find a common denominator for the 3 and the 6. And the lowest common denominator that works there is 6. So now that we have our common denominator, which in this case is 6, we're going to multiply everything in that equation by our 6. So we're going to multiply by the common denominator that we just found. Okay, so now when you do that, you have to remember to multiply every single piece of your equation by that common denominator. So we're going to multiply the 6 times the 2/3 x. We're going to multiply the 6 by the 2, and we're going to multiply the 6 by the 5/6 x. So don't leave any piece out. If you leave any piece out there, then your equation's going to get out of whack, it won't be balanced, and whatever answer you get is not going to be the right one. So now take the time to rewrite that equation showing that you're going to multiply every piece by 6. A lot of times students will try to do some of it in their heads and then they'll lose track. So until you're really comfortable with this technique, just take the time to write it all out. I think you'll find it worth the while. All right, so now let's go back through each piece and we're actually going to do the multiplication. So let's take the first piece. We have 6 times 2/3, and if you think about that in terms of fractions, I'm going to go ahead and write it over here on the right hand side. We're going to multiply 6 times 2/3. And so we get 12/3, which will reduce down to 4. So notice how that fraction just disappeared. So now I've done this multiplication and I end up with 4x. Now I'm going to multiply my 6 times 2. So that's going to give me 12. And then I'm going to multiply finally my 6 times my 5/6. So when you do that multiplication out, you'll get 30/6, which reduces down to 5. So we've got minus 5x. Now we've got an equation that looks so much simpler than it did in the beginning. From here you proceed as you would normally proceed to solve equations. We see that we have variables on both sides of our equation, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get rid of the 5x from the right-hand side. So since it's a minus 5x, I'm going to add it back in, and that will neutralize. That will go to 0. And so I'll do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to add my 5x. So I end up with 9x is equal to 12. Divide out the 9. X is equal to 12/9, and then we see we can reduce that down because 12 and 9 can both be divided by 3. So our final answer is that x is equal to 4/3.